There is a moment in every woman's life when she feels the urge to speak up, and yet she doesn't. Maybe it's over something small, like the way he cuts her off mid-sentence at dinner. Maybe it's something bigger, like being told her goals can wait while his are urgent. And in that moment, she swallows her truth. She tells herself, it's not worth the argument. I don't want to upset him. Let me just keep the peace. But what is peace that comes at the cost of your voice? We are taught from early on, sometimes subtly, sometimes forcefully, that being a good woman means being agreeable, being soft, being less loud, less assertive, less difficult. We learn how to shrink to fit into someone else's idea of who we should be. And sometimes, without realizing it, we carry that lesson into our relationships. We start silencing ourselves to keep things running smoothly, believing that our silence is a form of love. But here's the truth: love that requires silence is not love. It is control dressed up as connection. You cannot have a real relationship with someone if you are constantly editing yourself to be palatable. When you diminish your voice to keep the peace, what you're really doing is creating a false version of yourself and inviting him to love that version, not the real you. And over time, that suppression adds up. It doesn't go away just because you push it down. It leaks out in resentment, in exhaustion, in that hollow feeling that starts to whisper something's not right. And sometimes, we don't even realize how far we've drifted from our own truth until we barely recognize the woman in the mirror. Speaking your truth does not mean yelling. It doesn't mean attacking or blaming. It means honoring your thoughts, your needs, your feelings, without apology. It means saying, I matter, my voice matters. And yes, sometimes it will create tension. Sometimes it will cause discomfort. But those are not signs that something is wrong. Those are signs that you are showing up fully in your relationship, that you are no longer hiding in the shadows of your own life. Let me say this with love and clarity. You are not here to be small so that someone else can feel big. You are not here to bite your tongue so that someone else can be comfortable. Your thoughts, your ideas, your questions, your concerns, they are not liabilities. They are your light. And any man who cannot hold space for your voice is not your partner. He's your silencer. There is power in knowing what you will and will not accept. There is dignity in having standards. Not because you're picky, not because you're cold, and certainly not because you're arrogant, but because you understand your worth. Yet, too many women find themselves apologizing for it. Apologizing for wanting consistency, for wanting clarity, for expecting honesty, loyalty, and effort. Apologizing for not being okay with being someone's option when they know they deserve to be a priority. Somewhere along the way, we were told that having standards makes us too much. That if we're too clear, too firm, too direct, we'll scare him away. And heaven forbid a woman actually says what she needs, because then she's labeled demanding, or high maintenance, or difficult. But let me tell you something that needs to be said: your standards are not the problem. They are not walls. They are windows into your self-respect. You don't owe anyone an apology for requiring the bare minimum of emotional maturity. Wanting someone to communicate with respect, show up with integrity, and treat you with care is not asking for too much. It's asking for what is healthy. But sometimes, especially after we've been through toxic situations or long periods of loneliness, we start to doubt ourselves. We start lowering the bar just to have someone stand near it. We accept breadcrumbs and call it dinner. We convince ourselves that if we just love a little harder, wait a little longer, bend a little more, maybe it will turn into what we need. And in that bending, we break ourselves. You see, having standards doesn't mean you expect perfection. It means you value alignment. It means you've done the work to understand who you are and what brings peace to your life. And you are unwilling to compromise that for the illusion of connection. Love should never require you to abandon the very values that make you whole. The right man won't be intimidated by your standards. He'll rise to meet them. He'll see your strength not as a threat, but as an invitation. Because a woman with standards isn't hard to love, she's just harder to manipulate. And that distinction is everything. Some people will walk away when you stand in your truth. Let them. Every no. You speak from your soul clears space for the right. Yes, to find you. But it has to start with you not second-guessing your own expectations. Not watering yourself down just to be digestible. Not sitting in places that leave you empty just to say you're not alone. A woman who holds herself to a standard of emotional, spiritual, and relational health is not only honoring herself, she's also teaching the world how to treat her. Standards are not selfish. They are sacred. They are the quiet, steady voice inside you that says, I am not available for anything less than truth, care, and alignment with my spirit. There's a kind of sacrifice that too many women make in silence. Not because they're weak. Not because they lack ambition. But because somewhere along the way, they were taught that love means putting someone else's needs before their own. So they start shelving their dreams. Dreams of creating, building, leading, exploring. They start telling themselves, it's not the right time. He needs me right now. Maybe later. Maybe when things settle down. And before they know it, they're living a life shaped around someone else's purpose, not their own. What begins as compromise too often turns into quiet surrender. You find yourself sitting in the background of his spotlight, clapping for his wins, while your own gifts gather dust. You tell yourself you're being supportive. You tell yourself this is what love looks like. But deep down, a small part of you starts to ache, not out of jealousy, but out of a deep, aching truth that you were meant for more than watching someone else live out their potential while you silence your own. Love is not supposed to cost you your calling. There is nothing noble about abandoning yourself. Nothing holy about shrinking your vision so that someone else can feel big. When you start putting your passions on hold to maintain the status quo, you're not preserving peace. You're brying your light. And the longer you do it, the harder it becomes to hear that inner voice. The voice that once whispered dreams into your spirit. The one that used to get excited about possibilities. It doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter every time you say later. Let me say this clearly. A man who truly loves you will never ask you to abandon yourself to make him more comfortable. He will not flinch when you speak about your goals. He will not ask you to dim your ambition so that he can shine brighter. He will walk with you, not ahead of you. He will understand that a woman with a dream is not a threat. She's a force. You were not put here just to nurture everyone else's dreams while yours go unnoticed. You have been given ideas, passions, gifts for a reason. They are not accidents. They are your soul's blueprint. To ignore them for someone else's comfort is to live half a life. And no amount of romance, attention, or praise will ever fill the space inside you where your dream once lived. You can love someone deeply and still choose yourself. You can be in partnership and still be on fire for your purpose. The two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the right relationship will water your dreams, not drown them. So don't apologize for dreaming boldly. Don't quiet your goals because he isn't ready to match your energy. Don't fold your wings to make someone else feel taller. Every woman knows what it feels like to wait on something that never quite arrives. to sit at the edge of a relationship hoping for more effort, more presence, more tenderness, but only ever receiving pieces. A text that comes just when you're ready to walk away. A half-hearted apology. A sudden show of affection when he feels you slipping. It's not love, it's a pattern. And those little bits of affection, those sporadic gestures of care, start to feel like meals when your emotional stomach has been empty for so long. But emotional breadcrumbs will never fill you. They keep you coming back, hoping the next moment will be different. Hoping that the version of him you saw for 5 minutes on Sunday night might show up consistently. But deep down, you already know. You know he's not present in the way you deserve. You know you're doing the emotional labor for both of you. You know you're clinging to potential, not reality, and still you stay. Because it's scary to admit that something you've invested in isn't feeding your soul. You start telling yourself, maybe this is just how he loves. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe if I'm a little more patient, he'll come around. And with each, maybe, you settle a little more. You justify the silence. You rationalize the lack of support. You make excuses for the bare minimum. And all the while, your heart begins to shrink in the space you're calling love. Let's be clear. Love is not meant to be rationed out like a scarcity. It is not a reward for good behavior, nor should it be something you have to earn. You are not asking for too much when you ask for emotional presence, honesty, consistency, and care. That is the baseline. That is the foundation. And if someone can't meet you there, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their readiness. There are men who will breadcrumb you not because they don't care at all, but because they don't care enough. Enough to grow. Enough to show up. Enough to love you in the way you need to be loved, not just the way that's convenient for them. And the danger is that those small moments of connection can trick you into staying far longer than your heart can afford. But here's what's true. You were not created to survive on scraps. You were not built for fragments. You deserve a full meal, a relationship that nourishes you emotionally, spiritually, mentally. One where you don't have to beg to be seen. Where you don't have to chase affection like it's a reward you might finally unlock if you just prove how good, how loyal, how forgiving you can be. Disrespect doesn't always come storming through the door, loud and obvious. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the way your opinions are dismissed mid-sentence, in the subtle eye roll when you express emotion, in the passive-aggressive joke that everyone laughs at, but lands like a punch in your gut. These moments might seem small, easy to brush off, easy to excuse. But they are not harmless. They are signals. They are the quiet beginnings of something much louder if left unchecked. A woman begins to lose herself not in one grand moment, but in the slow erosion of her boundaries. You tell yourself it's no big deal. You tell yourself he's just tired, or he didn't mean it that way. You try to be the understanding partner. You minimize your own feelings so that his comfort remains undisturbed. And maybe he's not raising his voice, maybe he's not calling you names, but that doesn't mean it's not disrespect. Because disrespect isn't just about what's said. It's about what's allowed, what's tolerated, what becomes the new normal. And that's the danger of small doses. They seem manageable. They seem forgivable. But over time, they collect like dust. They coat the air in the relationship until you're breathing in a version of love that leaves you gasping. What once made you feel valued starts to make you feel invisible. What once made you feel seen starts to make you question yourself. And the worst part is, by the time you realize how far you've drifted from self-respect, you've already been trained to call it love. But love without respect is not love. It's control dressed up in affection. The moment you accept being spoken to carelessly, the moment you laugh off being belittled, the moment you allow your dignity to be bruised in the name of keeping the peace, that is the moment you begin shrinking. And a woman who has to shrink herself to be loved is in the wrong relationship. You deserve to be in spaces where your voice is not just heard but valued, where your boundaries are not tested but honored, where your presence is not taken for granted. And that begins with how you teach people to treat you. Every time you ignore a slight, every time you let something slide, you are unintentionally setting the tone for what will be considered acceptable. It's not about being rigid. It's not about seeking perfection. It's about protecting the sacredness of your spirit. It's about saying, I will not allow anyone, even someone I love, to make me feel small, uncertain, or unworthy. You don't need to explain or defend your need for respect. You don't need to prove that you deserve basic human decency. The very fact that you are here, breathing, loving, giving, that is all the proof you need. There's a kind of love that doesn't look like love at first. It looks like devotion, like commitment, like sacrifice. You begin with the best of intentions, open-hearted, generous, willing. You bend a little, adjust a little, accommodate a little, and slowly, almost without realizing it, you start to move further and further away from yourself, from your voice, your joy. You're still smiling, still showing up, still holding it all together, but something inside you is fading. You stop doing the things that light you up because he doesn't see the value in them. You stop spending time with certain people because he doesn't like how they influence you. You stop speaking up when something doesn't feel right. You don't want to push him away. You keep choosing the relationship over your truth, thinking that love means putting yourself second. But love is not meant to erase you. It's easy to get caught in the illusion that being deeply in love means being endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly understanding. That if you just pour enough of yourself in, if you just keep showing how loyal and devoted you are, then maybe, just maybe, it will all work out. But in that process, you forget that love is supposed to hold you, not hollow you. There's nothing romantic about losing your identity to keep someone else comfortable. There is no strength in shrinking, no beauty in blending into someone else's life so seamlessly that you forget how to stand in your own. You were not created to be an echo of someone else's needs. You are your own story, your own voice, your own fire. And yes, relationships require compromise. Yes, they require work. But there's a line between compromise and self-abandonment. There's a line between growing together and disappearing one piece at a time. That line matters. Because when you give up your dreams, your friends, your void truth, you're not nurturing love, you're building a prison and calling it partnership. The danger is that no one tells you when it's happening. There's no big announcement, no flashing light. It's quiet. It happens in the little choices, the skipped conversations, the silent swallowing of your needs. And one day, you wake up and realize you don't recognize the woman in the mirror. Not because she's broken, but because she's been edited. You are allowed to evolve in love, but you are not meant to disappear. The right relationship will not ask you to give up the very parts of yourself that make you feel alive. It will make room for your becoming. It will celebrate your fullness. It will honor your individuality as sacred, not as something to be softened or reshaped. You deserve to be loved for all of who you are. Not the convenient version, not the quiet version, not the agreeable version, but the real, whole, unapologetic you, ladies. Love should never cost you your voice, your vision, or your value. In a world that often asks women to shrink, to settle, or to stay silent, choosing yourself is not selfish. It's essential. You are not here to be half loved, half heard, or half held. You are here to be seen, respected, and cherished in your wholeness. Let your standards be sacred. Let your dreams breathe. And above all, let your love for yourself be louder than any fear of being alone. The love you seek must first begin within, and from that place, everything else will rise.